Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of FSI's NASCAR DFS preview. We have the Daytona 500 Big Show. I'm joined with Mega Ruler, Andrew Berry, aka Mega Ruler. Mega, how you doing this evening? And how has your day been? And how is the week gone for you? How is Speed Week?
It's been back and forth. I had some good plays, just some bad luck. And by the way, the Barry that was in the Xfinity race, no relation.
Josh Berry, that was his name, correct?
I believe he was doing very well and then had, again, some bad luck and crashed.
Unfortunate business being on the super speedways. We have 200 laps to talk about here for NASCAR. DraftKings Fanduel opening up some big lobbies for us, as always, for the Daytona 500. This is one of the best races we get all year. It's like our Super Bowl. Always kicks off the year. One of my favorite races. It's one we grew up watching, and I'm happy to discuss strategy from a betting angle for DFS, DraftKings, and FanDuel picks. So let's just jump right in. We're going to talk a little bit of strategy beforehand. Quick question on that front, as we've been dealing with all week as far as overall strategy. What can we expect from this track? What can we expect on this kind of race? And things to look for. What do you think, Mega?
Well, the first thing I'm hoping for is no weather. Like, if you remember last year, they did the national anthem and they drove, I think, 2 or 3 laps, and then it was rained out, and they ended up doing it on like Monday or Tuesday. It was like probably the longest Daytona ever. But that sometimes happens. So you have to take that into consideration. And if you do get a rain delay in the middle of it, it completely changes the track when it cools down and it's a nighttime race. But I think the general strategy, a lot of people look for cars to start at the back. They try to capitalize on place differential for this, and then maybe take a couple guys up top that they think could win the race. So this is another strategy, and we talked about it all week in the articles, is that you don't need to use your whole salary. It's okay to leave a couple thousand on the table here. If you have a lineup that you really like, you don't need to spend all the money just because they give it to you.
Right. And I mean, when you talk about Daytona and these super speedways, you kind of have kind of like how should I say this? Unpredictability factor when it comes to how things are going to go. You can't predict wrecks, and you can't predict, tech failures and engine stalls and tires getting blown out. So you can't predict those things in NASCAR DFS, but that's what makes it such a fun sweat. We've been on both ends of the spectrum. We had the 40th car in our truck series wreck into the back of the 39th car and just destroy an industry-wide full of lineups. And then you had one of the very last cars in the Xfinity race finish in the top 10. So you can get the best of both worlds at a track like this, but that's what makes it fun. With that being said, as you mentioned earlier about, maybe taking a few guys in the top 10, I was thinking, we have 3 of the last 4 winners coming from the 11th to the 15th place starting place. Is maybe 1 or 2 of those guys too many, or are we just taking all guys in the back?
Well, I think we need to clarify something first. When we talk about guys in the back, there's going to be several guys that are going to have to start in the back just because they either changed something with their car after the last race or they wrecked in the duel. So Kozlowski, Briscoe, Grella, Alfredo, Byron, Custer, Chastain all moved to the back because they're in backup cars. And Jones, I believe, had replaced something on his car. He was an engine, and then Truex replaced a hose or something. So just because those guys moved to the back doesn't mean that they're scored from the back. It means they're scored from their original position that NASCAR has them starting at. They just go to the back of the field when the race starts. But in this race, it doesn't really matter. If this was a road course or one of those a short track where it's very, very hard to pass and very, very hard to get back up front, and some of these guys were up in the top, then definitely they'd be fades. But I don't think it really matters here because a lot of the strategy in the race for the NASCAR drivers, some of them try to move to the back and just let all the chaos play out in front of them. And then later on, towards the end of the race, work their way up to try to get a better position.
Yeah, absolutely. We see Ryan Newman do that every year, and somehow he still ends up in the wall at the end. Poor guy. But yeah, you beat me to my next point, was that we're going to have a few drivers here starting to the back, but I agree. None of them except for maybe William Byron kind of affects that, qualifying position. As we know, William Byron started up front in the second place position after finishing second in qualifying. But like you said, he will move to the back and he will be scored from second. We will get to him and Bowman later on about whether or not those guys are viable for our lineups. So speaking of which, in our lineups, let's just start talking about some salary plays here. We'll start off with the 10K range. We got Denny Hamlin up top, 10-4, two-time winner, back-to-back winner. He's starting 25th after a lackadaisical qualifying. Let's talk about some chalk, Mega. Is Denny Hamlin going to be the highest owned driver of the field?
100%, absolutely. And if you do not have him in your lineup, then you're automatically contrarian and have leverage. But if, he goes off and does what he's supposed to do and you don't have him, you're in trouble. If you play DFS soccer, it's like having Ronaldo or Messi in your lineup. If it's, one of those chalk plays where you have a quarterback that's a backup that starts the first week in NFL and the pricing came out in like April for, DK Fanduel, and they're like minimum price and everybody's going to have them and they're going to score a bunch of points, then, it's just something that you just got to lock in the lineup in your cash games and then move on. Pick the other.
Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Denny Hamlin, our cover boy, he is going to be the chalk of the week, but he's also going to be in the majority of my lineups as well. Next up, we have two guys here, Chase Elliott at 10-3, Brad Keselowski at 10-1. Chase Elliott is the defending champ. He's starting 12th. He always seems to find his way to the front. And Keselowski, 10-1, he's starting 24th. The Fords have that manufacturing prowess, but he is to the rear. How will that affect Keselowski, and is Chase Elliott a viable play?
Definitely like Chase Elliott. He's one of the Hendrick cards. They're 1 and 2. They have great speed during practice and qualifying, and Chase Elliott has, had success, getting up front and had some bad luck getting turned in some of these races. But Keselowski, I've always really liked the Penske cars here. As if you watch the Xfinity race, you saw the Gibbs cars all get together, and even though one of them kind of got out of line and wrecked most of the great drivers, they were working really well together tonight, and there's a lot of value in that. So, Keselowski is part of that, and I'm sure as we get on the pricing, you'll get like Logano in there and Blaney, and then Di Benedetto is also not officially a Penske car, but they're a Penske affiliation. So, those 4 guys can lock up. So I can definitely see Brad. He's starting off 24th, which is I believe he crashed in one of the qualifiers, but he's definitely not a 24th place driver. There's so much place differential there. I think he might be like one of the top 3 chalkiest guys up there with Hamlin.
Now, I will say this about Keselowski starting 24th. If Keselowski doesn't finish inside the top 10, at 10-1, it is possibly viable, depending on how everyone else finishes, that he doesn't pay off his salary with enough place differential points, maybe without enough fastest laps or laps led. And, the Daytona 500, it's only got 200 laps, but I guess, unlike, a road course where, lead laps doesn't matter. I think to some degree, when you're trying to pay off a salary over 10K, you're still going to need some, lead laps or maybe fastest laps. You're not going to be able to bank on everything just solely off of place differential, unless, Keselowski finishes top 5. I would say like maybe top 8 would be a point where he pays off his salary with, an optimal lineup. What we're trying to do really is trying to get 6 drivers to the end of the race. And Keselowski certainly capable of that. He does have a high DNF rate. He does have a win here, so I think you can just kind of take that for what it is. He can finish first, or he can crash out, and I'll just leave it at that. We'll go with Ryan Blaney here at 10K. This is one of my favorite plays, and this is going to be my pick to win the Daytona 500. I'm a really big Ryan Blaney fan. I think his car looks real strong. He's had a really good week. He was racing really well in that clash before he was wrecked by his buddy Chase Elliott. He looked really strong in the duels. He looked like a car that could dominate the Fords, and the Fords being one of the most, dominant cars on on the track for Daytona, year in, year out. I think Blaney, if he can keep his car clean, I think he's going to find his way to the finish. How strong are you on Blaney? Is that a strong GPP play in your eyes?
No, I think it's actually a good cash play too. A 14th is kind of high starting, but definitely with his the Penske cars, like I said, they like to get up there, and he's not afraid to lead. He's not one that's going to hide out in the back for most of the race and then move up. He has no problem being aggressive and getting up there and leading when he can. Even sometimes you'll see them flip their pit strategy too, and they'll stay out longer, pit early just to be able to get out there and lead and get those points.
Absolutely. And that's what I like about Blaney. He's always racing for your money. He's not going to sit around and wait until the back. I think he's going to be able to get fastest laps led. I think he's going to be in the optimal lineup come Sunday night. Next up, we got some 9K plays here. I'll kind of bunch them together. You got three guys, Logano, Harvick, and Kyle Busch, 99, 97, 95. I mean, all three of these guys are some of the best in the game. Some really good drivers. I mean, Logano had 24 top tens last year. Harvick looked real fast in the duels, and Kyle Busch won the Clash, and he kept himself clean for once on a super speedway in the duels, which is very rare for him. How do you feel about these three guys? Are they viable GPP plays, and anyone stick out to you?
Definitely Logano. Like I said, he's one of the Penske cars. I think he's going to have pretty high ownership. Let's see where I have him. Actually, I have him finishing second. So,
Wow.
I think he's definitely got a good shot at that. Harvick, he's one I think that plays a more conservative. He seems to kind of hang back. This is kind of a disadvantage for him. His advantage with Hamlin last year was their crew chiefs had them right off the truck. They were like ready to go, except for one race, so like Kentucky or something. He was like completely horrible. The setup was, he just kept on going backwards like he had bricks in his trunk or something. But I think he's a veteran, he's experienced, but he's not as aggressive as he gets older. I don't know. So he's a GPP for me. I don't really feel strongly about him. Kyle, even though he showed some success in like the road race, which was the Clash, and did well in the duel, I still think he's getting used to his pit crew and his crew chief. Last year was just a mess for them, and I just don't see them. I see them moving forward eventually this year, but I think it's too early in the season. He's one that really struggles when you don't have practice and stuff. I know they had some but I think he was counting on the final one to fine tune things, and it was rained out today. So I think that's going to be a factor.
Yeah, Kyle Busch is always a guy I hesitate on super speedways, especially Daytona. He's one of the more aggressive drivers on the circuit, and his aggressiveness and his impatience always leads to damage. It always leads to problems. And for me on Daytona Day, I simply am always underweight on Kyle Busch. Now that could always backfire. I mean, he's a guy that can always win, but I haven't seen him win a 500 in my lifetime. So I'm going to keep banking on that until he burns me. Next up, we have maybe one of the chalkiest plays on the board, and Ryan Truex Jr. at 9,300. Some pretty bad luck on super speedways, and he's also going to the rear, but I believe he's starting in the back. Your thoughts on Truex?
I like him as a driver, but I like him more in like intermediate 1.5 mile tracks. Super speedways, again, I believe he started the Daytona 5, not Daytona, but he's raced at Daytona I think like 20 or 30 times, had 0 wins. So he's someone that will do well. I'm sure he'll get some place differential, but I'm not going to put him in my cash lineups. I'd play him more as a GPP because I just don't think he's got the win equity.
I agree. Yeah, Truex, never won a Daytona. I don't think he's ever won Talladega. He's always a guy I stay away from on short tracks and speedways. 1.5 miles, you pretty much nailed it. I'm all over him on the 1.5 miles, but yeah. I think I'll have some just to cover myself to the field because of his starting position and the range of outcomes that can happen are unpredictable. So for that reason, I might have maybe 5 of 20 lineups with Truex just to cover maybe an optimal lineup that may come into a play. But these next two guys in this 9K range, we have Bowman and Byron starting 1 and 2. But unfortunately, Byron is going to the rear, but he will score from 2. Are these guys just full fades in your opinion?
I think so, because we're not sure about Bowman either. He didn't finish twin 125 there because he had some kind of mechanical problem, and there's speculation that they were going to run it in practice today and see what would happen, like check the gauges and stuff. So he might even have to replace that engine, so he might end up in the back also. So it's not 100% guaranteed that he's on the pole either.
Yeah, I'm hesitant on Bowman. We did look beforehand on his DNF rate. He has finished all of his races, but I don't think he has the power and the sustainability to stay up front. We'll talk about a guy that I like for an early case to lead the first bunch of laps, but Byron and Bowman for me aren't it. 8K range, we have Kurt Busch, past champion, starting 20th. Are you feeling fine play for me? Good, solid GPP play.
No, I think Bush is cash. I think he's
Cash
got a
play?
chance to get like 5x.
Yeah.
He can move up. He keeps himself clean.
He does,
20th.
yeah.
He's one that's not gonna like be a slate breaker. He's not gonna get you a ton of points, but he's gonna be like that plug it in play where it's vanilla ice cream. He's just
Right.
be there, and he's gonna get his lunch pail and put in an 8-hour shift and get you what you need.
I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot. Kurt Busch is always a guy that's never extremely high owned either, especially at that 8.8, that $8,800. I don't think he's going to be too high owned at that salary too.
I am projected as medium ownership.
Medium ownership. Okay.
So
yeah,
probably looking like sub 20%, but over 10%.
Yeah, then that's going to put me at 40% ownership then. I like that a lot. Awesome. This next guy up, we have Eric Almirola, 8,600. Stupid fast in the duels. Won the second duel. Or he won the first duel, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, and I will give you props for that one because you put it in your cash core, and I was like, no way.
Yeah.
He led from wire to wire, and I was like, this guy's a genius.
I will take that. Thank you very much. Almirola, he did that last year. He starts so good and so clean, and he gets sucked into the back of the pack somewhere around lap 100, and then you don't hear about him for the rest of the race. And that's what I thought is perfect for the duel, is that he starts so cleanly on these speedways. He's going to lead a ton of laps, especially starting second, and it paid off really well. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a sixth driver to finish the race with him, or finish, respectively. I think I can't remember exactly what happened, but I had somebody that would just linger on. Oh, I had Logano keep, falling in and out of pit troubles, and I just had a mess right behind a very solid play in Almirola. But I'm going to have some GPP exposure to Almirola to see if the magic continues, but probably nothing more than 5-10%. We'll move it on here. Two guys I think the next guy up is Larson at 8,500, starting 13th. I'm going to probably be a full fade on Kyle Larson. What about you?
I actually like him, but not in cash.
You do?
He's a very intriguing GPP play. Starting a little further up than I would like, but this guy really has something to prove. And before, like his comments and when he got benched last year, he had such a solid season in 2019. And he's with a great team with fast cars and Hendrick. I think he's got a lot of potential. This might not be his race, but you're going to see him win. I'm calling 3 races this year.
Yeah, I certainly like Kyle Larson for the year, but I just don't like him here. I haven't seen much from him during the week that shows me that his car has speed or his team is ready. This is a new team. The 5 team is, kind of resurrected
really
from
not to see it without Terry Labonte and
yeah. When I look at this 5 car, all I think to myself is Casey Kane.
Oh, I can tell it's cornflakes and Labonte.
Yeah. It's just I don't know. I just don't have a good gut feeling on Kyle Larson this week. But who I do have a good gut feeling on is Austin Dillon at 8,300, starting 4th, won the second duel. Besides catching the catch fence and finding himself in the bleachers, this guy finishes every Daytona race, and he's always in the top 10.
Yeah, I like him, but I'm fading him. He's starting 4th. That's just so hard to.
Yeah.
It'd be so easy if he falls out of the top 10. Then you might get negative points for him unless he gets up there and leads. But as you said, he only has Almirola to get past, to get out there early and to lead some laps. So, and definitely could pay off big time in a GPP. Definitely will have some low ownership.
Absolutely. And I would definitely not be someone to have Almirola and Dillon in my lineups. I would have one or the other in hopes to catch fire with one of those early leaders. Maybe they lead midway through stage 2 and you kind of get them finishing inside the top 10 after a bunch of lead laps, and then you top off around 55 points, something like that would be my goal in GPPs for that. But we can continue on here to this last AK play, the number 47 car, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 8,100, former Talladega victor, the ultimate GPP play, right? This is the boom bust in NASCAR.
Yeah, absolutely. There's only one guy in the field that scares me more to play, and that would be Ross Chastain, because Ricky Stenhouse actually called him reckless. And if for Ricky to call somebody reckless, there's something wrong. But he's always a GPP for me. 21 is pretty high up. I like it better when Ricky starts in like the low 20s or high 30s, but he is aggressive and he could have a chance to get out and to lead, because like I said, a lot of people like to sit back and just kind of let things develop and hope that they miss everything. But now Ricky, he's got one speed, and that's go.
Yeah. Yeah, Stenhouse is other than Kyle Busch, probably one of the more aggressive drivers on the circuit. Maybe not as reckless as Chastain, which is crazy to say because Ross kind of took them all out in that second duel. Wasn't it him that caused that wreck in the second duel?
I think so.
I believe. Yeah, it was him Keselowski, and it caught Noah Gragson and knocked him out of the race entirely. But we'll jump down in this 7K range. We'll start to do this a little bit more rapid fire, as a lot of these plays are the same. I think Di Benedetto is a strong play. That Penske Ford connection that you alluded to. Ross Chastain starting 34th. To the rear, the Chip Ganassi 42. This is Kyle Larson's old car. Now, we talked about the volatility of Ross Chastain. Do you feel the salary at 7,800 and the starting position could lead to maybe a decent play to be underweight in GPPs and then just play him in cash?
He's going to be highly owned in cash. I can let you know that people are looking at that don't know the history of him, are looking at the price, looking at the starting position. It's a recognizable name. They might remember that he took over for Ryan Newman last year when Newman was out, but there's a reason that he didn't get the ride full time. It's because they know he wasn't just ready for the Cup. So last year in Xfinity, he has his struggles here and there. So, but I do think like a lot of people are going to play him. He's going to have high ownership, and I'm not saying he's not a cash play. Just for me, I just think he's too volatile. I think he's too aggressive and too green in Cup Series. I mean, he's got a lot of racing experience, so I'm out.
Cool. I like that. I love to be different and contrarian in NASCAR DFS, especially on super speedways. And I feel like what you said was spot on. So I'm going to roll with you on that one. Chase, we got Christopher Bell, almost said Chase Bell, Christopher Bell and Bubba Wallace. We got number 5th and 6th in the starting position, 7,600, 7,400. I think these guys are the same driver. And I think both of them are of a fade. Unless you think Bubba can win. Do you think Bubba can win?
No, not with this new team. Anything can happen with this, the luck, and have like one person spin everybody out and take out a lot of good drivers, like happened in the Xfinity race today. But I think they're both fades, starting way too high up. If they end up like finishing like in the teens someplace, you're gonna get negative points.
Yeah, I agree. The only optimal play, in my opinion, is bets Bubba 66-1 to win. Yeah. That would be the only thing I would suggest is, have no DraftKings exposure and just bet them 66-1, and that's your full hedge. And I think that would be, profitable way to play and have exposure to Bubba Wallace. Eric Jones. I think Eric Jones is going to be my pivot off of Chastain after what we had talked about with Chastain's volatility. I like Eric Jones starting 31st in the Richard Petty car. He is going to the rear, but that's given them the opportunity to fine tune that machine. And he's starting 31st. And Eric Jones does really well on really fast tracks. I remember that from last year. He's really good on the 2 miles. He's good on the super speedways. I think Eric Jones is going to be my all-in chips here at 7K. What about you?
I like him. I think he's going to have high ownership. I think he's a cash play. Mildly concerned that they're replacing the engine, but if they figured out what was wrong and everything's good, then should be good. Bubba did well both Daytona races last year and the
Yep.
car. So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I like about Eric Jones is that there's some history with his car in this race as well, not just the driver. Tyler Reddick, I think, is going to be really popular here at 7,100, 29th. We all in on Tyler as well. And we found 2 plays right here in the 7K to be all in on.
Yeah, I like Tyler. I think he's a cash play. I think I like him better on tracks where they have that like single groove tracks where you go single file and you're high up against a wall. That's where he's very, very good.
The slide job tracks.
Yeah, it's only his second year in Cup, and he did struggle at times last year. So I think Childress, he's got a good team, so he's going to be paired up with Austin Dillon. The two of them can link up, and they have some affiliates too that are out there that can hook up with them also. So I could see them getting together and doing well, but it's a good cash play. I don't know if I'm going to play him, but.
Oh, okay. We got Ryan Newman here at 7K starting 7th. I think that's too high for me, although he does typically finish the race. I just don't see him paying off even at 7K in salary. Yeah, he's got a lot of issues going into this race. I just don't see him being aggressive at all. 6K, we got Chris Buescher at 22nd. How do you feel about Buescher? I think he's pretty safe play, very conservative driver. I think.
Yeah, he's got a great track record at these plate tracks in finishing. So I think he's got a streak of like 11 or 12 straight that he has. So he's like Kurt Busch, vanilla ice cream, gonna pay off his salary, not gonna score a ton of DK points, but he's gonna get you what you need.
And you know what? He can be one of the guys that finds himself out of a wreck and into the top 10. And then you're really cooking in GVPs. I love that. Next up, we got Cole Custer and Chase Briscoe. 2 Stewart-Haas Racing automobiles here, 27th and 30th starting position. Can we trust these guys to finish the race, or are these 2 guys likely to find themselves out before we even drop the checkers?
I think Briscoe is going to be very highly owned. He's only like
really,
yeah. Looking at chatter through the industry, I think there's a lot of people on him.
That's shocking to me.
I think they're looking at the Xfinity last year and not realizing that there's different things. Like when it comes to these Cup cars, they think it's like the same exact thing, but it isn't. And was it he or who was it that struggled this week? Because you go from having an analog dashboard to a digital dashboard, and
that was someone got a speeding on pit road.
It might have been Briscoe.
No, that was Cindric. Austin Cindric.
Okay.
Yeah, Cindric was speeding on pit road coming down the stretch to the end of that dual 1. And the only reason he got in is because Priest beat Ty Dillon at the line. And that's how he got into the race. Yeah.
But still, no, there's those things that are gonna, still need to get used to.
Right. And then we also saw before we started talking about this, Cole Custer's DNF rate was at 100%. Hasn't finished a Cup race.
Reddick.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's the other one, I think.
Oh gosh. Okay, so these rookies just can't handle it. We could talk about a couple veterans here, McMurray and McDowell. Maybe they don't have the best equipment, but do you think these guys can maybe finish the race? I don't know. 17th and 19th are 2 starting spots that don't really scream value. What do you think?
These guys are the old dudes, the 40-year-old guys that are playing at the YMCA with the teenage kids. They got their headbands on, they're hitting their hook shots, they have the fundamentals down. They've got game and they're patient and they drive you nuts, but you got to respect it. So they're veterans. They will do well. McMurray doesn't race that often. He just comes out for Daytona. McDowell actually had some solid races last year. He was, sometimes sniffed the top 10, but he stayed somewhere in like the high 20s to the teens, and always would pay off. He just did really well.
Yeah, McDowell had that stretch last year. I think it was when we started out before the COVID news and everything. He was paying off salary, and he was in a lot of optimal lineups to start the year. I think McDowell's pretty sneaky, actually. Now that we talk about it, I'm going with the old guys on the hook shots, man. I'm in. We can fade the kiddies down here in the bottom. We got Cindric and Priest. So is Cindric the chalk de la chalk at starting 39th?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Is this we got to lock him in?
Yeah, but he just win the Xfinity today?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
and,
All right. And the cars change, but it's the same team. And it's a really good team. It's a very successful team. So I think, again, he gets up with that pack with the Penske cars, and they just line up like the Gibbs cars, and they get out there and they do well.
I think Cindric is going to be last year's Tyler Reddick, where everyone was playing Tyler Reddick to start the year when he was starting in the back when we couldn't do qualifying. I think that's going to be Cindric this year.
Is he 30 this year, or is he just in for this race?
Cindric?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? He's in the 33. He's only in for this race.
Okay.
Darn. I was looking forward to that.
Well,
but
I think he's going to run some cup races this year, but he's the one that they wanted to stay. They think he's got a very, very bright future, but they want to bring him along slowly.
Probably the replacement to when Keselowski retires.
Well, Keselowski's contract's up this year, so boom.
Oh. Well, there we have it. We're in before everybody else on that one. Ryan Preece starting 11th. Is this a fade?
Absolutely.
Same. Same. I'm just going to leave it at that. Next up, we got LaJoie.
Hell no, a video.
Yeah. Agreed. Priest, no thanks. Aggressive driver starting 11th and no equipment. Done. Next up, we got a LaJoie and Suarez, two guys starting 15th and 16th. Not the best equipment down here in the 5Ks, starting below the 20s. More fades.
Move on.
David Reagan, 18th, past champion. Equipment.
Commentator now?
David Reagan.
I swear he was covering the truck race.
You know who was on the call today that I didn't recognize? Tony Stewart was on the Xfinity call. I'm like, who is talking? And then they finally said his name, Tony. I'm like, oh my God, is that Tony Stewart with Clint Boyer? It's amazing. David Reagan still racing plate races. He's getting an 18th starting spot. Is Front Row his manufacturer? Because if Front Row is his manufacturer, I don't mind it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think I might have a couple of darts here with David Reagan, the good super speedway guy. He only races Daytona every year, but he seems to pay off. He's like the Brendan Gaughan. Him and Brendan Gaughan are like the only guys who play on plate tracks.
You know who he was? He was the Michael McDowell 5 years ago.
Yes.
Because you would always like put in all your studs, and then you'd have like 5K left, and David Reagan was there, and you just click him and hope.
Yeah, because he never wrecks. He always finishes the race, and then lo and behold, he found his way
25th, and he finishes 25th.
Well, and and half the battle and is finishing the race, and that's why someone like Reagan has paid off for so many years. Next up, we have Anthony Alfredo, Pasta as they call him, starting 36th. He's to the rear, another front row car. Any love for Alfredo, or is this a safe bet for the first one off the track?
Not necessarily. I mean, he had some bad luck in the the duels, but honestly, like I played him a lot in Xfinity last year. He was a very good driver, and I don't think he's is he full time up this year, or
he is full time in the 38.
Yeah, because he didn't run Xfinity today. So again, it's probably the switching, getting used to the Cup car over Xfinity. It's also when you look at when college stars go to the NFL, the speed of the game is just so much greater when you move up to a level, and sometimes it takes a while to adjust to it. So, but honestly, starting 36, I have no problem playing him. Probably more of a GPP than a cash play, but I don't think he's a complete fade.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'll go with pasta for a couple of GPP darts. Lastly, we have the 4K Bottom Feeders Club. Probably the only guy to talk about in this range is Kaz Grala. Are you in or are you out on the call league number 16?
I'm in. He won the Daytona truck race in 2017. He's more of a road racer, I believe, but
Yeah.
he's decent. Um, his team is a really strong team in Xfinity. So,
Yeah.
you know,
And he's starting 40th. His floor is as safe as,
yeah,
his
he's not going to lose you any points for place differential.
right. Right. I think it's a cash play, and I wouldn't say you have to be overly overweight in GPPs with Mr. Grala, but I think he's certainly a play you could be 40% on and then just move it on, get him in with a bunch of different combinations of, different outcomes that you see fit. And then, you just do it from there. Next up, we have McLeod, Balicki, Derek
We'll
Cope.
make this really easy. The only one that I would consider in these guys is Balicki, and you know my love for Balicki. Even though he did wreck in the duels, his DNF rate is minuscule. He finishes races. He usually starts in the low 30s. He might not even get out of the 30s, but he always finishes. So
Yeah.
he avoids trouble.
Balicki is starting 37th, 4,600. I'm going to go with you. I always do on someone like Balicki, but Derek Hope, that is your 40th driver. His car might not even get off the freaking pit road. You have Quinn Huff. There is such a Quinn Huff love in this industry, and I am not one of those guys. I don't play Quinn Huff. Now I say that, but I was like all about it, and then you like completely talked to me off, and I'm like, what? You're right. What am I saying? I don't want to play Quinn Huff. And then you have McLeod. McLeod never finishes. Gase is starting way too high. Where
even though this is cup
yeah.
and there's no like start and park like there is in like truck and Xfinity, the equipment in this range is subpar. They're second cars, they're borrowed cars, they're self-funded teams. And the other thing too is they want to try to make as many races as they can this year. So if they sense there's something wrong with the car, instead of like blowing the engine or potentially crashing it, they're just going to stop.
Yeah, they're off the track. Right. So yeah, you have Grala, you have Balicki, and then I don't know. That would probably be it. Maybe McLeod if you're getting desperate. But that'll pretty much wrap things up for picks.
Just one thing before.
Yeah, I was going to ask anything to add.
Yeah, for our FanDuel friends, because the strategy is completely different there.
Okay, fire away.
You're not going to look at any of these like bottom feeder guys like we were talking about. The only one I would consider here would probably be maybe Cindric at 6,200 there. But, picking up, you don't really need to play the guys that are toward the back, because FanDuel like really emphasizes like finishing position more than like DraftKings does. So you really want to get some of the studs up top, but you want to hammer like more of the mid range. Like you seldom want to play. So I think Cindric is like perfectly priced at 62 to be like probably the lowest guy you play. And then you can definitely build, because you only have 5 guys there that you're playing. The other 4 you can sprinkle in. The other thing to look at also is if you look at our sheet that you give you, we give you who the teams are, and we'll post in Discord tomorrow some of the affiliations for the racers. And some of the nice thing to do on these plate tracks is like to pair up like teams in, if you're doing multiple lineups, is to pair up teams of owners and then teams of the different manufacturers, because they seem to work well together. And this is the track situation where that pays off the most.
Absolutely, yeah. Teamwork here on speedways are almost everything, especially early on in the race and getting through to the end, and then it's everyone for themselves. But you got to get to that point, and usually you get there with your teams, you get there with your bump drafts and everything like that. So definitely something to add for sure. As you mentioned, you can get to our Discord channel. You can follow our Twitter handle at FSI_DFS, and you can find a link on that Twitter handle for our Discord chat, and you can get a first look at Mega Ruler's projections, you get core lineups, and then daily advice as far as Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and the Cup Series. We pretty much give you everything you need to get your lineups in, you get your lineups done, and green screens every weekend. It's the best kept. It's the best kept secret in our channel. I think the NASCAR channel is just automatic. It seems, if we don't hit on the Cup, we hit on the trucks. If we don't hit on the trucks, we hit on the Cup. It's just something like that every weekend, and I always look forward to it. But that'll pretty much do it for us, Mega. Thank you for tuning in, or thank you for joining me, and thank you everyone for listening and tuning in. And as always, please like and subscribe to our channel. And you could follow me at TK Nation 47. You could follow Andrew here at Mega Ruler 31. Mega, you excited? Daytona Day.
Yeah, like I said, I'm just hoping that we don't have to deal with weather. It'd be nice to actually sit down and watch a race in 4 hours and not in 10 hours.
Amen to that, man. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I hope you all are too. Everyone have a good day, and see you in our Discord. Later.